Hey guys, it's Amy here, and today we're going to be doing my May wrap-up. All the books that I've read this month have been 3 stars or above, which is really good in my books, so let's get on to it. I'm going to start with my lowest rating first. So my only 3-star book for the month was a graphic novel, and it is Lumberjanes Beware the Kitty Holy. This is volume 1. I did enjoy this book. I gave it 3 stars obviously, so it was a good read. I just wasn't completely pulled in by it. Like, I didn't feel like I wanted to pick up the next volume immediately after reading this one. This one basically follows the set of girls who are at a summer camp kind of thing, and they are known as Lumberjanes, and you kind of go through the story learning about the kind of tactical guides to the wilderness and all these things, and all this crazy stuff happens to them in the wilderness, like not what they expect to happen whilst they're at summer camp. So it was a fun read. I'd say that this one is aimed at a younger audience. It's quite tame when it comes to swearing and violence and things like that. It's definitely not as gruesome and vulgar as things like the Rat Queens and things like that. So yes, I would still recommend this one if you think this is something that you would enjoy, or if you're a younger reader and you haven't read any graphic novels yet, this may be one that you might want to start with to get yourself into graphic novels. So there we go. Moving on to my 4-star books for the month, and the first one I'm going to talk about is The Boy in the Striped Pajamas by John Boyne. This is a historical fiction set in World War II, and it follows the story of a young boy. He's about 9 years old. He's called Bruno. Bruno is German and his family are German. They're living in Berlin, and he and his family have to move away from Berlin for his father's job. Bruno doesn't really understand what his dad does. He just knows that he's very high up in the military, and that the Fuhrer, which is what he calls the Führer, i.e. Hitler, has given his dad a really amazing job, and that he needs to move house to be able to go and do it. So you learn very near the beginning of the book that Bruno and his family have moved to Auschwitz because of Bruno's father, and the fact that Bruno's father has a very high kind of commanding role at the concentration camp. Bruno, being a 9-year-old boy, doesn't quite understand where he is or what is going on. He believes the place that they've moved to is called Outwith. I'll spell it on the screen so you can see how it's written all throughout the book, because it's told through his perspective. So the whole time he's talking about this place and calling it Outwith because that's what he thinks people are saying to him, like he can't work it out properly. And the innocence of that, the pure kind of childlike nature, the fact that he doesn't even know the calamity and the kind of tragedy of the place that he's in is just horrific, and it really it hit my heart. The only reason I gave this book 4 stars is slightly connected to that childlike nature. Like, I really loved the way it was written, and it was very, very clever, but Bruno's character was very like double-sided. So in one aspect he was extremely childlike, and I really loved that aspect of him, but then on the other side he was coming out with these lines that were extremely intellectual. The way he speak to his sister and his mother and the maid, it just didn't quite work very well, because he suddenly came out of these lines that just didn't fit with his character and his understanding of the situation up until that point. It essentially came across very strongly that John Boyne was writing these lines as an older man, but almost putting older man lines through a younger boy's mouth, if that makes any sense. It just didn't work very well. But overall I thought the book was great. It was very heart-wrenching. I did really enjoy it. I have seen the film years ago and it made me cry my heart out. I didn't cry in the book, which I was surprised at. I thought I would, but hey ho, really liked it. 4 out of 5 stars. My next 4-star read was my non-fiction book for the month, which was Beyond the Pale by Emily Erquhart. This is Emily Erquhart documenting the life of her daughter Sadie, who was born with albinism. Emily is a folklorist, and when she gave birth to Sadie and found that she had albinism, she basically went out and wanted to research everything that ever was to do with albinism, all the kind of histories of it, the beliefs to do in different cultures. Like, some cultures believe that people with albinism are descendants from angels. Others, specifically in Africa, believe that body parts from people with albinism are able to heal them of certain things, so they'll chop off people's arms and legs and things like that to kind of make into potions and stuff. I'd never really read anything to do with albinism before now, so most of this was completely new to me, and it was shocking and upsetting, and it made me just want to wrap people up in a big hug, because it scares me how horrific the world can be sometimes. I really loved just going on this journey with Emily as she discovered more and more about her family and the history and all the things that went back generations to the point where Sadie was born with albinism. It was just so interesting, and by the end, like, I did have a bit of a tear, and it was just really, really beautiful. I would highly recommend if this sounds like something you would enjoy. I think anyone could pick this up and just learn so much from it, so I would highly recommend to everyone. My next 4-star read is The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. This is a science fiction read set on a spaceship. We follow the story of a girl named Rosemary who gets a job aboard a spaceship known as the Wayfarer, and the Wayfarer is a spaceship that kind of makes tunnels through space so it's easier to kind of travel through, but it's a very dangerous job and not many people do it. So Rosemary's got a job aboard this ship, and aboard this ship are lots of different species of people basically. So they're not just humans, there are different people from different cultures and planets and all different kinds of things. So Rosemary has a lot of people to meet and a lot of kind of cultures to get used to aboard this ship. This book was just not what I expected it to be. I thought it was going to be like action-packed and quite like hardcore all the way through, but it was not, and I liked that it wasn't. It was very subtle, it was very slow, and just it was a really nice character study. So all the different characters aboard the ship you really got to know, and all of their stories you really closely got to kind of engage with and learn about them, and it was just really beautifully done. In a way, it somewhat reminded me of The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien, because that's a very slow journey and it's less about what happens come the end and more about what happens to the characters throughout the story and where they end up and what they learn about themselves and things like that, and that was very much what this story was like. I really love Rosemary as a character. I thought she was really well rounded, and as were all the characters in the book, I really became quite attached to them. So I'm looking forward to reading the second book. I believe there is another one of this coming out maybe later this year, so I'm looking forward to seeing where the story goes now that this one kind of concluded, because you could very much read this one as just a single novel. So yes, very good, and I would highly recommend. Let me know if you read this one because I'd be interested to hearing what you think. Next for my 4-star books is The Fifth Wave by Erich Yancey. I did a full review of this one on my channel, so I'll leave a link to that one down below if you want to go and watch it, because I won't talk about it too much here. This one is essentially a kind of apocalyptic novel set around a girl named Cassie, and it's the end of the world essentially. These aliens have come and released these things known as waves upon the planet. The first wave takes out all technology, so the planes come down, the cars crash, nothing works basically, and people go into panic. The second and third waves kind of do other things to cause disaster and kill people. Discovering what all the waves were was probably one of the most exciting things for me. I really liked like learning and trying to work out what these aliens were going to do next to kill off all the humans on the planet. It was very engaging, very exciting, one of the best YA reads I've probably read this year, so definitely would recommend. I'm currently reading the second book of this trilogy and I've got the third one ready to go once I finish that, so looking forward to seeing how this one pans out. Moving on to my final 4-star book for the month, and it was Ship of Magic by Robin Hobb. This is the first book in the Live Ship Traders trilogy and I really loved it. In fact, I would say it was more of a 4.5 out of 5 stars because it was just really good. I really enjoyed it and I can't wait to see where this trilogy goes. This one follows a whole host of different characters, so I think that's probably one of the main reasons why I enjoyed it more than the Farseer trilogy, because the Farseer trilogy focuses on like one person primarily, whereas this one you follow tons of different people, kind of like Game of Thrones. Our main character is a girl named Althea and she lives aboard a ship which is known as a live ship. A live ship is an interesting thing. I'll try and explain it to you. So a live ship has a kind of figurehead on the front of it, and after a certain amount of generations have died aboard the live ship, this figurehead on the front will come to life. Althea's father dies aboard the ship near the beginning of the book, and the figurehead on the front of the ship comes alive. What happens in this book, so I'm not going to try and explain it all to you now because there are so many different storylines going on apart from Althea's, but Althea's story basically starts at the beginning and her brother-in-law has taken Vivacia, the ship, from her, and it has broken her heart, and she is basically trying to get her ship back so that she can continue sailing it. Plus a whole host of other things are going on at the same time. So I would highly recommend this book to you. I would also say that even if you haven't read the Farseer trilogy, I wouldn't say it's essential to read that. This one you can very much read and get the gist of what's going on anyway. All I would say is this one is absolutely brilliant, so if you do ever get onto reading it, then definitely let me know what you think because I'd love to talk to you about it. So moving on to my final book for the month, and it's my only 5-star read this month, and it's definitely gone into my favourites for the year. It's probably going to be in my top video for the year, and it is All Quiet on the Western Front by Erich Marie Remarque. This is a historical fiction set in World War I. It's been translated from German because Remarque is a German man. This one follows the story of a group of 19-year-old boys who are taken from their school classroom and drafted into the army, trained and then sent onto the front line to fight other young men. I honestly don't think I can explain to you guys the feeling that this book gave me. It honestly grabbed onto my heart and held onto it for a while. Like, it's making me want to cry just thinking about it, because it was just such a phenomenal read. I don't know how to explain it to you guys. So Remarque himself did actually fight in World War I. I believe he was injured early on, so he was kind of taken away from the fighting. But although this is historical fiction, I do believe that a lot of the action and things that happen in this novel probably were taken from Remarque's experiences or his friends' kind of anecdotes of things that had happened during the time of the war. I can't believe that this is all completely made up, because it was so real. Like, it read like a memoir. Like, it honestly, like, I struggle to believe that this was all fiction, and it was just wonderful. You guys can tell that I just can't even get any words out to explain how good this book was. One thing that this book did really make me think about was the fact that, so I was reading this book in English, and because of that, I kept slipping into the thought pattern that the characters I was reading about were English as well, because I was reading in English, they were speaking in English because the book is written in English, and I kept imagining them as English soldiers because that's what I'm very much used to. That's what I was taught about in school, you know, English soldiers, not German soldiers. So I had to keep reminding myself that these were German soldiers, not English soldiers, and it was almost on the other side of the fence, like the other kind of viewpoint of it all. And there was a part in the book where the main young character ends up in a kind of shell hole in the middle of no man's land, and there's another man in the hole with him, and he stabs him. And in this moment where this German guy is trying to work out whether he should stab the guy more to kill him quickly, or to just leave him, or to help him, he doesn't know what he should do basically. He's only like 19, and this guy is dying in front of his eyes, and they're stuck in this shell hole because he can't go out because he'll be shot down by all the people on all the sides. And he sat in there, and in that moment he kind of takes the wallet out of the French guy's uniform, and he sees that he's got a wife and kids and all these things, and he's just thinking to himself, like, this man isn't any different from me. Like, I just stabbed him first. You know, if I didn't manage to stab him, would he have attacked me first? Would we both be sat here? Would we have, you know, stalemated or anything? Like, what would have happened? Like, I am the same as this man. And when he said that, I was like, yeah, like, you know, I'm reading this and I keep slipping into the thought that they're English people, but really they're all the same. Like, all these young men going off to war, shooting other young men, are all exactly the same. Like, they all have families, they all have friends, they're all fighting for their country and these things, and it just, like, that moment for me in the book was just, like, I can't explain it to you guys, but I would highly recommend you go and pick this book up if it's not that long, and it has affected me so strongly. I know it's going to be one that I'll pick up throughout my life, and that I've already recommended it to a ton of my friends and family, so yes, just wow. So there we are, guys. I hope that all made sense. I have a feeling that it's going to be really crap and annoying to edit that last review, because I was just getting, like, I don't know how to just get it across to you guys how much it affected me. So there we go. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you've been reading this month down below. I'd love to chat to you about it. As always, I will leave links to Facebook, Tumblr, Twitter, everything I've mentioned today down below. I hope you're all having a fantastic day, and I will see you soon. Bye. My social media, but about 8 weeks ago I decided to switch to a vegetarian diet for ethical reasons